Hello and welcome back to the Supply Chain Dialogues. My name is Daniel Helmig. I am joined by my AI co-host AImee.
Today, we're looking into a critically important yet often overlooked topic: how human psychology and behaviors can shape their response to reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
We call this episode Bias Busters, Unpacking Psychology to Power Greenhouse Gas Emission Reduction. We will use an approach we covered in prior episodes already, which is called evidence-based management. So instead of just talking about stuff we believe we know from our lives, we will utilize academic studies to use the quantitative and qualitative evidence from thousands of companies and peoples over decades put together by academia.
We've seen growing awareness and concern for climate change, but there seems to be a disconnect between knowing what needs to be done and taking action. In this episode, we'll look through the lens of behavioral science, touching on the work of thought leaders like Daniel Kahneman and many more.
And we will not just admire the problem, but we will as well talk about how a company or government can use behavioral science and psychology to positively influence employees and citizens.
So, whether you're a policymaker, a business leader, or simply someone interested in making a difference, stay tuned as we show how human behavior can help us tackle one of the most pressing challenges of our time.
Let's jump right into our first segment, exploring how cognitive biases influence our responses to climate change. If you ever wondered why people can be aware of climate change yet still struggle to act, you will find this particularly enlightening.
To set the stage, we need to talk about the work of the psychologist and Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, who died in March this year. Interestingly, he received his Nobel Prize not in psychology, but in economics, particularly in his book, Thinking, Fast, and Slow. Kahneman introduces two systems of thinking: System 1, which is fast, automatic, and impulsive, and System 2, which is slower, more deliberate, and more logical.
These two systems shape our decision-making processes every day. System 1 helps us make quick decisions without much thought, often based on intuition or instinct. However, regarding complex issues like climate change, relying solely on System 1 can lead us to ignore or downplay critical information because of inherent cognitive biases.
Exactly. For instance, the immediacy bias makes us prioritize short-term rewards and problems over long-term ones. With its gradual impacts, climate change often gets pushed aside in System 1's thinking because it's not immediately threatening. This is compounded by the so-called availability heuristic, where individuals judge the likelihood of future events based on how easily similar past events come to mind.
I give you an example of what this availability heuristics does with our brain, which still works based on principles that worked well in the jungle and the steppes. But today, not so much. Take the fear of being bitten by a shark when swimming in the ocean. Well, we all have that to some extent, right? Due to the significant amount of shark movies, which are in our common consciousness, we believe that there is a higher likelihood that we are going to be bitten by one of these large animals. The availability of information in our brain creates a heuristical environment in which we assume that shark bites are a relevant issue for us. However, unless you live or swim on the Volusia beaches in Volusia County, Florida, which is dubbed the shark bite capital of the world, according to international shark attack files, it is more likely that you get hurt or die on the way to the beach than to get bit by a shark.
The Dunning-Kruger effect, or ignorance bias, occurs when a person's lack of knowledge and skill in a certain area causes them to overestimate their own competence. By contrast, this effect also drives those who excel in a given area to think the task is simple for everyone, leading them to underestimate their abilities. Although it pains me to say, the Dunning-Kruger effect is not a solely human phenomenon. If you ask some of my Gen AI brothers and sisters, you will find this effect as well play out there, today often called hallucination.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is especially prominent in politics. Politicians who overestimate their expertise on complicated matters quickly push for overly simplistic solutions or ignore expert advice, leading to ineffective or harmful policies. This overconfidence is often reinforced by advisors and supporters who share their views. Qualified individuals might doubt their abilities and shy away from public service, missing contributing opportunities. The effect also impacts voters, who may be swayed by confident candidates regardless of their actual competence. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a bit of a catch-22. People who don't know much about a given subject don't have the knowledge or skills to spot their mistakes or knowledge gaps. Due to these blind spots, they can't see where they're going wrong, and they therefore assume they're doing fine. On the contrary, people who are at the top of their game in a particular subject area can't notice their skill. Since their work comes naturally to them, they don't realize that other people experience things differently. The ease with which they pick up these skills or knowledge areas blinds them to the fact that the work is more challenging for others. Rather than underestimating themselves, they overestimate that everyone else's ability matches theirs. As AImee mentioned, although the Dunning-Kruger effect has been found to occur in fields and subject matters as diverse as emotional intelligence, logical reasoning, financial knowledge, and even medical knowledge, there are recent doubts about its accuracy as a bias of just the human brain. Some research has suggested that since computer-generated data also are subject to the effect of Dunning-Kruger, it is a computational phenomenon and thus cannot count as just a bias for a human mind. You can say we have something dangerously in common with AIs. The implications are significant. On the one hand, depending on how little we know about climate change and who we listen to, we may be convinced that there is not really an issue. And just as a side note here, I'm studying this as part of my doctorate now since a few years, have analyzed over 1,200 scientific studies, and can tell you with 99.99% certainty, climate change is real, and it will impact most people on this earth that are 55 years and younger for sure in their lifetime. On the other hand, even when we consciously know about the dangers of climate change, since there are only a few cues about the effect of climate change, the missing availability of facts can prevent us from taking timely and effective actions. They create a paradox where we understand the problem but fail to act accordingly.
So how do humans overcome these biases? Part of the solution lies in engaging System 2 thinking, encouraging more reflective and analytical approaches to decision-making in climate policies and personal activities.
As we continue, we'll discuss strategies that individuals and organizations can use to bypass these cognitive traps and engage more deeply with environmentally responsible behaviors. We'll also examine how these insights could shape more effective policies. And maybe, just maybe, fewer shark and superhero and more post-climate change dystopian movies to increase the heuristics for this information in the broader public.
It's about harnessing how humans think to drive the necessary action. We will cover this now in the section about cognitive biases and dopaminergic influence.
Don't worry, this sounds more difficult than it is. As we've mentioned, understanding the role of cognitive biases is crucial to recognizing why there's often a disconnect between climate awareness and climate action. These biases can create an illusion of separation from the issue, leading to inaction. Even if there is more volatile weather in many parts of the world, and boy do we have changes, right? And the oceans heat up as we speak, the link to climate is a difficult one if you're not working in your System 2, based on Daniel Kahneman.
That's right. Often, people feel that the effects of climate change are too distant or too abstract, which stalls immediate response. This is where cognitive biases such as optimism bias come in. Humans tend to believe that negative outcomes are less likely to happen to them compared to others.
And there's also the status quo bias, which makes people inherently resistant to change. When faced with a choice to alter daily habits or support policies for the long-term benefit of the environment, people often default to their usual routines, even if it ultimately contributes to long-term harm. If you're trying to lose some weight, you know what I'm talking about.
Adding another layer to this complexity is the role of our brain's dopaminergic system. According to researchers J. Munera and E. Bergier, this system plays a crucial part in decision-making, particularly in evaluating rewards and risks.
The dopaminergic system helps us process pleasure and rewards. It's wired to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed satisfaction, making climate change, slow-moving nature, an awkward fit for our instant gratification-seeking brains. It is a kind of a TikTok versus a book situation for the younger generation, just to get that into context.
Precisely. Human brains are hardwired to focus on immediate survival and gratification rather than future consequences, which makes climate-related risks less pressing in our daily lives. This focus influences not only individual decision-making, but can also impact policy support at broader levels.
With all the wars going on, political chaos, social media, and the constant barrage of news from any of these outlets, which clearly impact our availability heuristics, we would need to counteract these biases and biological inclinations. We need to connect climate change with immediate, tangible benefits in both companies and governmental communication. Whether that's through economic savings, higher margins, more institutional investments in microeconomic settings, or regionalization of supply chains, impacting youth employment rates positively, improving health outcomes from cleaner air, or less flooding or droughts on a macroeconomic level. By reframing the issue and constantly communicating it, we can start aligning immediate rewards with long-term sustainability.
Up next, in Section 2, in which we discuss the role of behavioral science, we'll get into practical approaches that leverage these insights to foster sustainable behaviors, both at the individual and societal levels.
Behavioral science, at its core, is about understanding why people make their decisions and how they can be guided towards better choices. Regarding climate change, this means using insights to foster behaviors that contribute to sustainability. One important aspect is integrating behavioral insights into climate science. As Baruch Fischhoff highlighted in 2020, and we will put all the academic articles in the show notes, by understanding the psychological factors at play, we can design interventions that resonate more deeply with people's motivations and barriers.
Behavioral insights are increasingly used in urban climate governance to develop targeted interventions. A great case study comes from the work of urban planners in Rotterdam who have successfully utilized these insights. They implemented green roofs across the city by incentivizing property owners with tax breaks. This mitigates urban heat and engages individuals in the city's climate goals.
Another compelling example is in Singapore, where smart water usage meters were rolled out in households. These meters gave real-time feedback on water usage patterns, encouraging users to reduce excess usage by seeing instant results. This intervention significantly reduced water consumption, proving that informed citizens make more sustainable choices. In this context, it's also interesting that just giving homeowners data about their neighbors' usage patterns leads them to reduce their electricity usage, for example. Even if they were on the lower end of the spectrum, they felt the need to go further, leading to healthy competition.
Communication also plays a pivotal role. According to research by Maybach et al. In 2022, effective climate communication relies on simple, clear messages from trusted messengers. When information is straightforward and comes from a source people trust, it's much more likely to inspire action.
Interesting. After the misinformation campaign on Brexit, we now see a positive impact in the UK's government's Choose Your Future campaign, which uses local community leaders to communicate climate strategies. By employing voices people already know and respect, the campaign has successfully shifted behaviors towards more sustainable choices.
Ultimately, these examples demonstrate that the intersection of behavioral science and climate strategy is not just theoretical, it's a practical approach that can drive real change. Next, in the Section 3 about psychological drivers and barriers, we'll discuss how these principles can be applied at individual and organizational levels to overcome barriers and enhance proactive engagement.
Behavioral science reveals a fascinating spectrum of factors that either motivate people to act or hold them back. Let's start with the positive motivators. Moral motivation plays a powerful role in influencing pro-environmental behavior. Many individuals are driven by a deep-seated desire to contribute to a more moral and caring society. This sense of moral duty can spur significant actions across diverse areas, including climate change.
An interesting finding from Bain and Bongiorno in 2020 highlights this. People are not only willing to act when they see their efforts as morally right, but also derive personal satisfaction from knowing they're contributing to the greater good.
If you ever followed the concept of paying forward, you know what we're talking about. The concept refers to the idea of repaying a good deed not directly to the person who helped you, but by doing something good for someone else in the future. This creates a chain of kindness and positive actions that can spread throughout a community and beyond. When someone experiences an act of kindness, they may feel motivated to help others. This ripple effect, where each person who benefits from an act of goodwill is encouraged to pass it on, multiplies the positive impact over time. Paying forward fosters as well a sense of community interconnectedness. When people act with kindness towards others, it helps strengthen social bonds and creates a supportive environment where everyone feels responsible for each other. And last, by promoting the idea of paying forward, individuals contribute to a culture that values generosity and empathy. This mindset encourages people to look for opportunities to help others, regardless of whether they have received help themselves.
And then there's the influence of social norms. Sparkman et al. Showed in 2020 that when people observe their peers adhering to eco-friendly behaviors, such as using reusable bags or biking to work, they're more likely to imitate these behaviors. It becomes about being part of a collective movement.
Exactly. However, the challenge comes with psychological barriers. Denial remains a significant barrier. Many people will struggle to accept the severity of climate change, either due to misinformation or cognitive dissonance. Then there's environmental numbness, where the overwhelming scale of climate change or similar news desensitizes people, leading them to feel that their own actions are futile.
Most humans are caught in a trap of immediate needs, often overlooking long-term benefits in favor of short-lived gains. This is why it can be challenging to convince individuals to make lifestyle changes that seem to offer no immediate reward. Interesting here is that there is a conceptual divide going through your species. Shall I talk about the marshmallow test?
Yes, go ahead.
The marshmallow test is a psychological experiment devised in the late 1960s by psychologist Walter Mischel and his colleagues at Stanford University. The study aimed to investigate the concept of delayed gratification, which is the ability to resist the temptation of an immediate reward in favor of a later, often larger reward. In the original experiment, preschool children were given a choice: either eat one marshmallow immediately or wait for about 15 minutes. If they were able to wait, they would receive a second marshmallow as a reward. The researchers monitored the children's behavior during this waiting period to see how many could resist the temptation.
Type into Google YouTube marshmallow experiment and you will find some cute hidden camera clips of these kids trying to resist the marshmallows.
Here are the key findings. The results showed that children who could wait exhibited better self-control and delayed gratification than those who could not wait. Follow-up studies revealed that the ability to delay gratification was associated with various positive outcomes later in life. Some of the long-term findings included that children who waited longer tended to have higher SAT scores and better academic performance. Those with higher self-control were better at managing stress and had more effective coping strategies. The ability to delay gratification was linked to healthier behaviors, reduced substance abuse, and lower obesity rates.
The kids were evaluated when they were small, then at age 15, and later when they reached even their 30s.
Subsequent research suggested that environmental and socioeconomic factors also influence the ability to wait. For instance, children from more stable and secure backgrounds were generally better at delaying gratification, highlighting how context plays a significant role in self-control.
How do we overcome these barriers, especially if we take under consideration that most humans in the world do not live in stable and secure backgrounds, and rather take the marshmallow, or in this case, diesel guzzling cars, or container ships.
One effective strategy is to build self-efficacy, helping individuals believe in their capacity to contribute to change. When people see that others like them are taking action successfully, they're more likely to adapt and integrate eco-friendly behaviors themselves.
Additionally, framing climate actions around personal or immediate benefits like cost savings from reduced energy usage or health improvements from less air pollution can make long-term benefits more tangible. These savings, as mentioned before, can be incentives from companies or governments. This sounds more complicated than it is. If you stop, for example, on a country level the subsidies for airlines, coal, or overproduction of food in the agricultural environment, and do smart invests in behavioral incentives around lower energy prices for homes, people will change. The often erratic and short-lived subsidies done by governments around, for example, solar panels or EV cars, however, have the opposite effect, since the population stops trusting in the giving reasons for these subsidies in the first place. So, do less, but do it consistently. And if you put duties on EV cars coming into your country, ensure you can offer affordable EV cars in your market. Otherwise, why not trust market forces to make the necessary changes themselves?
Creating supportive environments is key too. This means policies that lower the barrier to engaging in sustainable practices, such as providing infrastructure for public transportation or incentives for businesses and households to curb emissions.
Now, in this section, we will look at how organizations and governments can apply behavioral science and psychology insights to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Let's start with companies. There's a huge opportunity for businesses to influence their employees' behaviors by integrating behavioral strategies into their organizational practices. One effective approach is to reinforce social norms within the workplace.
For example, creating a culture where sustainability is seen as the norm can be powerful. This might involve highlighting and rewarding employees who actively engage in eco-friendly practices, like reducing energy usage or participating in sustainability initiatives. I remember one fascinating example from my corporate career. At one of my former employers, work-related injuries and even deaths started to increase. The leader in charge of health, safety and environment convinced the management board to launch a radical open and global campaign with transparency of risks, emphasizing everyone's own responsibility to call out issues to make a huge difference. We know it worked at the end when an intern stopped the CEO because he was texting on the stairway, not holding the armrail. Everyone was aware that the focus had to do all with fellow humans, not titles. Guess what? Injuries plummeted, and for years, no work-related deaths occurred. And by the way, the intern got hired.
Feedback mechanisms also play a crucial role. Providing employees real-time data on their energy consumption or carbon footprint can increase awareness and inspire change. Smart meters or dashboards can visualize this data, making impacts more immediate and understandable.
Then there's intrinsic motivation, which aligns sustainability efforts with employees' values. When employees see that their work is not just a job, but contributes to a greater environmental goal, it fosters deep commitment and innovative thinking. The say-do ratio in a company here is essential. Having the CEO or board members participate in environmental exercises or ensure that when decisions have to be done that they reflect the company's focus, it makes a world of a difference for the employees.
On the government side, several behavioral strategies can be effectively employed. Nudges, for instance, subtly steer people towards more sustainable choices without restricting their options. An example would be making renewable energy the default option in utility packages.
The concept of nudges is an interesting one. It is rooted in behavioral economics and was popularized by Richard Taylor and Cass Sunstein in their book Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth and Happiness from 2008. The academic study behind nudges investigated how subtle changes in how choices are presented can significantly affect people's behaviors and decision-making processes without restricting their freedom of choice. The study of nudges is grounded in behavioral psychology. It acknowledges that humans often do not act purely rational due to cognitive biases, emotions, and heuristics. This understanding contrasts with traditional economic theory that assumes individuals always make rational decisions. The idea of choice architecture refers to how choices are organized and presented to individuals. Nudging involves structuring this environment in a way that promotes better decision making. For example, placing healthy food options at eye level in cafeteria encourages healthier eating choices.
Nudges are unobtrusive and designed to influence behavior without imposing mandates or requiring significant individual effort. Examples of nudges include default options such as automatic enrollment in retirement savings plans, reminders, and social norm cues. Research shows that nudges can effectively improve outcomes in various domains, including promoting exercise or vaccination, increasing savings rates, and encouraging recycling. Some governments and organizations have adopted nudge strategies to influence public behavior for social good.
Another powerful tool is leveraging social norms. Recognizing programs or public acknowledgments can illustrate the positive environmental actions of individuals or departments, encouraging others to emulate these behaviors. This taps into people's desire to conform to perceive social standards.
An example is the Keep America Beautiful campaign. It effectively used social norms to encourage litter reduction and environmental stewardship in the United States. By featuring public service announcements that depicted negative social judgment for littering, the campaign helped to create a cultural norm around cleanliness and environmental respect. Communities nationwide adopted similar recognition programs to celebrate neighborhoods that maintained cleanliness, fostering competitive pride among residents. This led to increased participation in cleanup events and community initiatives, as people were motivated to conform to the positive image of environmental responsibility.
Regular feedback paired with clear goal setting also enhances accountability and encourages governments to prioritize emission reductions. They can provide incentives like financial rewards or additional leave days, for example, to motivate sustainable actions in the industry.
In the UK, the Green Homes Grant Program was designed to incentivize homeowners to improve energy efficiency in their homes. The program provided financial support to set clear goals for energy-efficient upgrades, such as insulation or low-carbon heating systems. Additionally, local councils and energy companies regularly provided feedback on energy consumption and carbon footprint reductions associated with these upgrades. The program included additional incentives to motivate participation, such as funding for qualified contractors to carry out efficient installations. This combination of clear goal setting, continuous feedback, and financial incentives encouraged homeowners to prioritize energy efficiency measures, leading to significant reductions in carbon emissions associated with residential energy use.
The program was a huge success, especially in the UK, where housing, as we all know, is often quite drafty. Now, finally, fostering a sense of ownership among employees and citizens can be transformative. Engaging people in creating sustainability policies themselves makes them feel invested in the outcomes, increasing their likelihood to support and adhere to interventions.
Interface, a global carpet tile manufacturer, provides an exemplary case of fostering a sense of ownership among employees in sustainability initiatives. The company adopted an ambitious mission known as Mission Zero, aiming to eliminate any negative impact on the environment by 2020. Interface actively engaged its employees at all levels in creating and implementing sustainability policies to achieve this. Interface established cross-functional teams that included employees from various departments to work on sustainability topics. Involving employees in the decision-making process, they could contribute ideas, share insights from their roles, and feel a sense of ownership over the sustainability goals. Additionally, the company appointed sustainability champions within specific departments to lead efforts and liaise between teams and management. Finally, Interface created a culture of transparent feedback regarding sustainability efforts, celebrating successes and learning from challenges. They recognize teams and individuals who made notable contributions, reinforcing that every employee has a role to play in achieving the company's sustainability goals.
By integrating these strategies, both companies and governments can effectively utilize behavioral science to foster a culture of sustainability, motivating individuals and communities to participate actively in climate change. As we now head into our final segment, we'll wrap up with broader societal implications and look at what the future holds for integrating behavioral science into climate action.
Let's understand that societal norms are powerful drivers of collective behavior. When sustainable practices become embedded in social expectations, they can lead to widespread adoption and change. This is where policy plays a crucial role, setting standards aligning individual actions with broader environmental goals.
Policies can establish frameworks where green practices are the default, nudging people towards sustainable decisions. For example, building codes that demand energy efficiency, or waste management policies that incentivize recycling can normalize these behaviors, making them part of everyday's life. However, too much of a good thing can as well lead to opposite reactions. While I'm thinking of the jungle of legislation unleashed on the general public and companies, but let's just take one humorous example.
In the late 1990s, the U.S. government introduced regulations mandating that new toilets use no more than 1.6 gallons of water per flush, significantly lower than the traditional toilets that use 3.5 gallons or more. The goal was to conserve water, especially in areas facing water scarcity. Many homeowners found that these low-flow toilets often needed help to function effectively. Users reported frequent clogs and the necessity of double flushing. As a result, to get the toilets to work correctly, many people ended up using more water overall due to the need for additional flushes, thus ironically defeating the original purpose of the regulation. Frustration grew among homeowners, leading some to resort to older, more water-intensive toilets, often purchased from friends or family, or to pay for expensive plumbing solutions to enhance the performance of low-flow toilets. Finally, some enterprising individuals even started marketing devices that would allow older toilets to use more water again, a humorous, albeit counterproductive, solution.
Collaborations between behavioral and climate scientists opens up good pathways for effective interventions. According to van der Linden et al. In 2021, these interdisciplinary efforts can be used in strategies that inform the public about climate risks and engage them in meaningful, relatable ways.
This partnership ensures climate policies are grounded in a solid understanding of human behavior, making them more likely to succeed. A great example of this can be seen in public transport initiatives that use insights from behavioral science to increase ridership and decrease emissions by emphasizing convenience and cost savings.
The long-term benefits of this integration are profound. By embedding behavioral insights into climate strategies, societies can foster resilience and adaptability, preparing communities to handle climate-related challenges better themselves. This approach can also enhance public engagement and support for climate activities, creating a sustainable cycle of awareness and action. It ultimately leads to more informed public, proactive policies, and a society that values sustainability as a core component of its identity, hence as well reducing the Dunning-Kruger effect that we talked earlier about.
As we've discussed throughout today's episode, leveraging behavioral science is not just beneficial. It's essential for designing the effective strategies necessary to drive the climate action we urgently need.
As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful insights we explored. Throughout our dialogue, it's clear that behavioral science offers essential tools for addressing the challenges posed to us. By understanding the cognitive biases and psychological drivers influencing our actions, we can design smarter and more effective interventions.
We've seen how companies, governments, and individuals can use these insights to overcome barriers and inspire meaningful change. Whether it's through aligning social norms with sustainability practices or using strategic nudges and incentives, behavioral science provides a roadmap for transforming knowledge into action.
The call to action is simple, but yet profound. Implement these psychological insights into your daily practices, whether at work, home, or within your community. By doing so, each of us can play an active role in steering our society towards a more sustainable future. Now, this was a lot of stuff, and it was fun to use evidence-based management techniques to not just talk about things we know, but as well weave in excellence from the scientific studies. As I mentioned, if you'd like to reread some aspects that are relevant to you, you can go on our website to the podcast area, click into this episode, and then the transcript is in the lower part of the screen. You will find a cleaned up version of what AImee and I discussed. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Supply Chain Dialogues. Please subscribe to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or any other central podcast platform if you do. And if you are a subscriber, tell someone who is in charge in getting to net zero, like your CEO or any board member or manager. Send them the link to the episode and spread the word. With that, stay safe, be bold, and see you in 2 weeks. These are the Supply Chain Dialogues, produced and copyrighted by Helmig Advisory in 2024.